In this episode, I talk with Helen Munro. Helen is the founder of Cultivating Creative. Within her business, Helen provides marketing support to small businesses and charities, working closely with clients to uncover the challenges that they face. She then provides bespoke solutions to help them achieve the success they desire. Within this conversation, we talk about the challenges Helen faces being a mum of 4 children and running a business. Yes, that was 4 children. The definition of success and how we should take time to discover what it really means to us versus what society suggests to be successful looks like. And finally, the importance of a weekly meeting with your partner. Welcome to the Happy Thriving Mums podcast, the show that talks about the simple actions busy mums like you can take to prioritise your own health, happiness and fitness. And it doesn't stop there. This show also includes amazing stories from remarkable women who help others to be the best version of themselves. Because if you feel great, you thrive, and so does your family. So, if you're ready to overcome mum guilt, manage overwhelm, feel and look your best, and create a happier, more balanced life for yourself and your family, this podcast is for you. Helen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Right. So we're going to start today, as I do with all of my guests. You've heard of an elevator pitch. This is the school run pitch. So you've got about 45 seconds between drop off and dashing to your next stop. When another parent asks you, so what is it that you do again? What would you say to them?
So I run a business called Cultivating Creative, and it provides marketing support for people who run small businesses and charities. And the aim is just to help people to be able to do what they love doing and do what they want to do, but to provide some of that support that they either don't have the time to do, they might not have the kind of knowledge and expertise, or they just don't want to do it. And so it's to that's my aim, is to free people up to do the things that they want to do by kind of stepping in the gap and providing that marketing support for them.
That's amazing because I think now when you've got a business, there is always some things where you're just like, I really don't
Yeah,
want to be doing that. And I guess if there's
yeah,
ways that it can just be made a bit easier or even just a
hmm
bit more fun, so you can just
yeah,
think, oh, actually, I can do that. And it's not as bad as I thought.
yeah. And sometimes it's breaking it down, and kind of saying, okay, well, maybe you don't need to do that, but what about doing this? Like, we can't all do everything. So, and sometimes I think as small business owners, we feel that pressure to do everything, to have the kind of the email newsletter, to have an amazing website, to do all the socials on all the platforms, and you just can't do everything. And so sometimes it can help just to sit with someone and say, right, who are your ideal customers? Who are you trying to communicate with? Where are they? And let's make a plan to help you be able to communicate with them in a way that works for you.
I think that's so powerful because I think, especially when you're starting out, there is so much. There is so
Hmm.
many things, and people are like, you should do this or you should do that, or you're
Yeah,
reading about things, and you need to have an email list and you need to have a social media presence and you need to do
yeah,
all of the things. And you just think,
hmm
I've only got however many hours I have in the
yeah,
day for this. And actually,
yeah,
to have somebody kind of like there just to say, it's okay. You don't need to do it all.
yeah,
Let's make a plan and kind of like go step by step. I think that's
hmm
actually something that we all need in business, but also maybe in life as well. So
yeah,
some people to just like help you
yeah,
be like, let's just prioritize these things and not worry about all
yeah.
these bits which are going on around you. They actually don't matter. So it's kind of like
Mhm.
drowning out the noise, I guess, in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
help people
No, I
hear
could I
that.
could definitely do that in actual life. That's not something that's not a service that I currently offer, but that would be amazing if someone to come in and just go, right, I can take this off your
Maybe,
hands.
maybe we've uncovered a niche here. I don't know what that
Yeah,
person would
absolutely.
be. Interesting.
Like, yeah, I did want to say I've got a very organized friend, and she's always the one who kind of organizes, like birthday parties months in advance. And I was a bit like, do you want to just like help me organize my life? She said no, it wasn't a paid position. So,
Never mind. I'm sure there's somebody out there. Maybe we need to talk about this afterwards and start another business.
yeah,
Let's see. Brilliant. So, Helen, you have got 4 children. I
I do.
mean, that blows my mind. I have 2, and I've only got 2 hands, and so that's about okay for me. But 4
Mhm.
is a big number. It's
Mhm.
unbelievably impressive. So tell us a bit about your journey. Tell us a bit about how Cultivating Creative came about,
Mhm.
how these four children have kind of like been in the
How that
mix
happened. Well,
throughout. Was it which came first, the chicken or the egg
yeah.
situation?
Mhm.
And kind of like, what's your story? How have you got to
Yeah.
where you are today?
So I back before kids, out of university, I worked in sales and marketing. Mainly the main place that I worked was at Ford Motor Company, the car place, and I worked there for um, quite a few years, doing various different sales and marketing roles. And I actually had my first child when I worked there, my oldest, and actually Ford is an amazing employer for women and for mums. So it was a shame I left actually because they had amazing maternity, like they did a year full pay maternity leave. I mean,
Wow.
incredible. And then they really encouraged women to come back into work. They offered flexible roles. So that was brilliant. Sadly, life changed and we ended up moving house. And so I took voluntary redundancy. And kind of over that time, that's when we moved to Molesey. I used to live in Essex, and that's when I worked at Ford. So moved over to Essex for various reasons, including my husband's job. And then at that time, kind of over the next few years, children came along. I did some kind of work with kind of little bits of part-time work, little bits of volunteering, working with various charities, supporting them. My husband is now a vicar. He went through a training process and became a vicar. And so I did some work helping him, doing various things with churches. Um, and over that time, that was all fine. And for kids, especially when they're younger, there were challenges, but it's lots of fun. I remember a health visitor saying to me, I was a bit like, when you have those wobbles, you go, I'm not sure I can do this. And she said, look, there will be more fun. There'll be more challenges, but there'll be more fun. And I was a bit like, okay, I can take that. I can
I
take
can
the
do
more
more
fun,
fun.
and yeah, exactly. And we'll live with the challenges. So then COVID happened, and at that point, I was really pleased that I wasn't kind of doing proper paid work because I just could not have managed with four kids at home. It was a challenge. There were some amazing times, there were some fun times. Obviously, with the pandemic, it was stressful as well. But actually, having four kids at home and trying to homeschool, that was, yeah, that was a challenge.
Challenging.
And for people who were trying to do their actual jobs and look after their kids and help them do their schoolwork, I just don't know how they managed. So absolute hats
Mm.
off to them. That was, yeah, it must have been really tough. But kind of coming out of COVID, I started to feel that I wanted to get back into work, but it's difficult with four kids. Childcare at that point, I think they were all at either primary school, in primary school, and the youngest was, I think, not even at preschool at that point. And I was just like, it is not feasible for me to have childcare for four kids, just on a practical level and financially.
Mm.
If I wanted to do any kind of work, even part-time, I just couldn't see how I could make it work. And it was actually my husband. He said, well, why don't you just work for yourself? And I was like, no, I couldn't do that. And I genuinely had never thought of it before.
Mm.
Um, and he said, but you have these skills, you could use them. And when I thought about it, I started thinking, actually, I do know quite a few mums who do run their own businesses. Maybe it could be someone who teaches yoga, or, it could be someone who runs a charity, or various people, artists, authors, various people who I knew who were doing these jobs on their own. And actually, I thought they could probably do with some help with various bits and
Mm.
pieces. So I started it, and I just thought, I'll see what happens. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I literally launched the business at the same time as I was potty training our youngest. And I was a bit like, let's just see, it's just another thing to put on the list. Launch a business, potty train
Was a
a,
trend
a
very
three-year-old,
similar in
4-year-old.
some ways, I imagine.
There were some similarities, yeah. So I basically I just said, I just put myself out there. I went on the socials and set up a couple of pages and literally said, this is what I'm doing. If anyone's interested. And actually, what amazed me was that on that first evening, and I remember it really clearly because I put it on Facebook that I actually started. And I shared a post and just said, if anyone's interested or if anyone knows anybody who might be, just, I'd really appreciate it if you shared my details. And that evening, an email came into my inbox So I'd been out, I came back, and there's an email from a woman who had started her own business. I didn't know her, I'd never met her before, a friend of a friend. And she said, I started my own business during COVID and I was looking for some support. I wanted some support in creating a new website. Um, and she said that she saw my details. A friend had shared my information. She wanted to support another woman starting up a new business. Shall we work together? So we had a chat, we got on well, and I created her website. And actually, that was so encouraging for me. Not just the speed, the fact that she immediately got in touch, but the fact that she kind of said, I want to work with you partly because I want to support somebody who's trying something new, and that's where it all started.
I love that. What an amazing story.
Yeah,
And
it was
that
it was so cool.
lady, I think, coming back saying about how she wants to support a woman in a similar situation.
Mhm.
I am so for women supporting women because I think sometimes it's one of the easiest things you can do, but it's
Yeah.
something which is so overlooked and people just,
Mhm.
for want of a better reason, maybe they're just so, people are so ingrained in what they're doing, they can't reach out. But that is just such a lovely thing to do. And for you, that must have given you so much confidence
It
and
really did.
just like, I can do this, this is going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And what an amazing springboard to kind of
Yeah.
start off of.
It
I
really was.
mean, what a great story. And as you said, starting your business when you were youngest was potty training. I mean, that's a challenge in itself. You don't need anything else on top of that. Potty training can be an all-consuming few
Yeah.
weeks, months onwards journey.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. What is the age range of your children now?
So now my eldest is 13, so the next one is 11, 9, and then the youngest is 6. So they are all at school, which is wonderful. And the older two are at secondary school, which definitely makes life easier.
That is just, I think when you've got all your children at school, it is a big, big game changer, I
Yeah.
think, for kind of everything, which
Mhm.
you then as a mum can start to reclaim yourself again.
Yeah,
Because I think,
definitely.
especially when you've still got, maybe they're at nursery a few days a week or whatever, but you've still got that, there's so much more going on, I find.
Mhm.
But having that space in the day when they're at school I think changes everything really,
Yeah,
especially if you are in a job where you can be flexible and set your
yeah,
hours. It gives you so much more
yeah,
scope to kind of
yeah,
get yourself out there and be a bit more you again. So
yeah.
your business is very specific in helping small businesses and charities.
Mhm.
Um, how do you find this important to you, firstly? And what kind of changes do you feel that you have helped for your clients?
So I think one thing that I really love doing is when I am working with a client, sometimes it's somebody I already know, but whether it is or it isn't, you don't really know what people do until you actually get into it. And
Mm,
so just chatting to people and kind of digging into what they do, what they love about it, really getting to know them and their kind of organization, whether that's a charity or their own business. I find that so helpful because then I can start to see what support they might need and what will help them, but also what's realistic. Because I just think it's just, we said before about how there's that pressure to do everything. And I just don't think there's any point in doing everything badly. It's because that's what's going to happen if you do try and do everything. It's just not possible, especially when you're running your own business and also when you have kids and you also have, a life. Um, so for me, it's all about helping people define what success is for them. So is success making more sales, or is success just kind of managing to do enough to also spend time with their kids, to also be able to pick their kids up from school, that kind of doing what they can within a kind of limited amount of time. Is it to kind of help them grow their business? Um, in a way that is manageable for them. So that's what I really love. Just kind of digging into that and finding out that information and then helping people to. And sometimes people don't actually realize what success means to them. Sometimes they think it means
mm,
um, you know earning more money, and that might be part of it, but often there's a lot more to it. And I think there's a lot of voices, especially on social media, about being successful is about how many followers you have, or whatever measure it is. And I'm a bit like, actually, I think we should define success in our own terms. we don't need somebody else to say what success means to us because it's our life and it's our own business or it's our, whatever it is that we're running. Actually, we need to be the people who define that success. And whether other people agree with that doesn't really matter, does it? It's about what's important to us.
I think that's such an amazing way of looking at things, really, because I think you're exactly right. Everybody gets kind of sucked into social media and how many follows have
Hmm.
they got, how many likes they get on a post, and
Yeah.
you kind of feel that is what is defined as success, I guess, on a
Yeah.
bigger basis. Whereas actually, if you do delve down that a little bit deeper and kind of think about what is success, what am I actually trying to achieve here? It's
Yeah.
a big thing. So my question to you is, what is success to you, Helen? What do you kind of look for?
Well, I think for me, it's quite a few things. Like I love having never thought about running my own business. I now love it. I love having this thing that is mine, and maybe that's partly because I have a busy life and a busy family. I love having this thing that is just mine, and I do what I want with it.
Mm,
Um, and but I do want to grow my business. I do want to um, have, but partly financially, but also to be able to um I guess make an impact, be able to help people. That is success. When someone says, "Oh, thank you so much. That really helped me, in whatever way," that
mm,
it feels like a huge success to me. But also the fact that I can pick up my kids from school and, make dinner for them and spend that time with them, that is also success. So I think it's better, and I think um, having the opportunity to thrive, to do what I love and to be able to make a difference. I think that's success for me.
yeah, well, it sounds like you do make a huge difference to lots of people. Just thinking about your clients, have you found there's like a trend of what people see as important, which actually you kind of grind down to and be like, actually, that's something that we don't need to focus on. Have you found that there's a trend, or do you find it's a bit more kind of personalized and specific to the actual businesses that you're helping in the first place?
I think I think there is quite a lot of difference, especially since I do work with charities as well. So that can be quite different. But I think there is a general thing about how we are perceived by other people, and I think that can affect everybody.
Mm,
Um, and actually trying to help people to see beyond that, whilst not, I guess, not entirely within the remit of someone offering marketing support.
mm,
Actually, I think it's much easier to do the practical stuff once you've kind of dug into those things in the first place. And I'm not a counselor, I'm not a coach, but actually having
no.
those conversations just with another person, um, and help it. And I think sometimes people want that kind of reassurance. It can help. You might think, oh, I don't think I am bothered about, whatever it is, whatever I've seen on social media. I don't think that that's my priority, but people are saying it should be. People are saying I should do this, and
Mm,
sometimes we just need to kind of talk that through and go, actually, no, it kind of validating people, saying, no, you don't need to worry about that. Obviously, it can help, but actually, if we're focusing on the wrong things, if we're focusing on things that are just going to take up tons of our time and aren't actually going to make a difference in terms of whether that's in sales or helping people or managing our time. Actually, let's deprioritize those and focus on the things that are important. But yeah, I think that is a bit of a common theme. But then
mm,
people are all different and people approach their businesses differently, and some people have got more time that they're willing or that they want to spend on their business as well. So um sometimes people will want to spend a lot more time focusing on one thing, whereas other people might only, they might say, well, maybe when the kids are older, I'd like to grow my business more. So for now, let's just do this.
mm.
So it does depend, I think, on the person and their own aims and also their own kind of life stage.
Mm. I think, I know the question I asked is very broad, but I do think it does kind of really boil down to kind of, again, what you said, what success means to that person, but
Yeah,
also how they can then authentically show up in a way
yeah,
which is going to be helpful and useful to them. And the fact
yeah.
that you can help them define that and
Hmm.
move forward is it's a very interesting skill set to have because, as you said, it's kind of like there's a very fine line there, isn't there, between kind of having to give them the confidence to be like,
Hmm.
yes, you need to show up as yourself in this way, in this format, and then you'll be able to achieve what you want to do, and kind of working out what that is. It's quite a
Mhm.
carefully crafted skill to kind of draw that out of people. So I
Yeah.
think it sounds so interesting what you do. I'm really enjoying hearing about it all. So thinking about you now,
Mm.
combination of kind of like running a business and being a mum, and especially of four children, can be very tough. And I also imagine you've got kind of like an extra dynamic there with a husband as a vicar, because
Mm.
obviously their time is very, for one, I was going to say important, but it's important for them to be in certain places at certain times, right? So the
Uh-huh.
flexibility there must be quite challenging
Mhm.
also. So for you personally and professionally, what does happy and thriving mean? And how do you try and prioritize that for yourself in your life?
So, happy and thriving. I think it's about, I don't want to say balance because I think balance is overused, isn't it? About kind of
I
work-life
agree.
balance, and if everything is kind of um even, I don't think that is it. And I think I'm a lot more about being flexible and working out what how I can kind of, I suppose, how I can respond to certain things. So, you know,
Mm,
if I need to spend a bit more time working, can I balance that by, you know, organizing childcare? And actually something that my husband and I really do try to do is to really work as a team.
mm,
And so like every Monday morning, for instance, we have a weekly catch up, and that is probably the most important time in our week because part of it's work, part of it's personal, part of it's like, oh, it's parents' evening this week. It's, you know, and or where are the kids meant to be? So part of it's logistics.
mm,
But we really prioritize that time so that if I know that he's really busy, I can then you know, try to work around that. But the same for him, you know, for me, so that if I've got a really busy, you know, if I've got a meeting, which when I would normally pick the kids up, can he do that? And so we try and work together to see what how we can balance it, how we can work together to help each of us kind of thrive, and obviously our kids as well. Um, it's also it's I find increasingly that it's really important to make sure that I allow space for me, not just
mm,
working. I enjoy working, and I do, and I enjoy working when the kids are away. So like on a Saturday, he'll quite often take them to a football match. They all like football. Happy days. And actually, I'm quite
brilliant.
happy working on that day. Like I don't feel that I necessarily have to go and have a spa treatment. I still enjoy having that time, but I still need to make sure that I get out and get exercise, get fresh air, you know, eat well. And I realized recently, actually, we had I mean, the times when you question, don't tell my kids this, the times when you question your life decisions are when a sickness bug comes into the house.
Oh, I
And
bet.
just over a week, it's just like one child goes down, oh, a few days later, another one. And, you know, they all had time off school.
Oh
There's lots of extra
gosh.
washing to do. You know, it was fine. We got through it. But um, a few days later, I was like, why do I feel so terrible? And I mean, it should be obvious. Why am I so like, I was just fed up. And I also started to kind of feel like I was lacking in confidence. And I thought, why? It's, you know, again, it should be obvious, but I just thought, I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel dreadful. And then I looked at it and I was like, okay, so the kids have all had time off school. So I've not been able to keep up as much on top of the
Yeah,
work things that I'd like to. So I feel like I'm catching up. I've not slept very well because they've all been up in the night.
yeah.
I've not been exercising. My husband's been super busy with work, so the house is in a bit of a state as well. And I just realized that all of those things had just got on top of me. And you know, that things happen, life happens, and
Mm,
sometimes, you know, you can't control that. Like kids get sick, that happens. But actually, um, I think for me, I just took that time out to go, okay, what's going on? Why do I feel dreadful? And I could be like, okay, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed earlier. So,
mm,
you know, a few nights of getting better sleep, guess what? I feel amazing again. You know, it didn't take much. And a conversation with my husband saying, you know, actually, I'm just struggling a bit. It's been a really tough few days. And he's like, yeah, actually, I've been really busy. Kids have all been ill. You know, he just put some extra washing on and did a bit of tidying up. So the house looks less of a state than it
mm.
was doing. Um, so actually having that conversation, and I didn't actually ask him to do anything, but he realized and was like, actually, yeah, I will go and just do some more stuff. Can I pick the kids up? And then me making the effort to go out and actually get some exercise, get some sunshine, on my face, that kind of stuff actually is it. I get, like I say, you can't always stop things from happening, but you can take stock and think, actually, I need to change what I'm doing for my own kind of well-being. So I guess it's being able to respond to those moments when things don't go to plan.
Mm.
That's part of it, isn't it? Because you can be thriving when things are all going well and things are easy. Yeah, that's not so difficult.
No, but you're right. But I also think when you're in a situation like the one you just described,
Mm,
that is so all-consuming, isn't it? That you don't actually have
exactly.
within that
Yeah.
moment or
Hmm.
week-long moment, as you were saying, you
Yeah.
don't have that breathing space to think
No.
about yourself so much. And then
Hmm.
for you to then have the kind of like the realization that actually you need to reflect on this, and in that reflection
Yeah.
you were like, actually I can see exactly what's happened here, but know that you've already got in place those things that you need to help you. I think is it's really powerful and it's really helpful, because I
Hmm.
know that I've been in situations where something's happened with the kids and it's just completely, it blows my mind, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of like almost see red. It's the fog, the mist
Hmm.
comes
Yeah.
in, and actually taking the kind of step back from it all and thinking, you have had a tough time, and
Yeah.
realizing if I just do these things, even just a
Yeah.
little bit of them, it can be an
It doesn't have to be
absolute
big,
game
does it?
changer.
Hmm.
Absolute game changer. So no, thank you for sharing that. And also your husband sounds so amazing. Like that's so great that
I mean,
he's
he's not
kind
always. Can I let me just be clear? He's a good guy, but he's not perfect.
no,
But we
I
do
know.
really try to prioritize, our relationship and our just working together because, we have a busy life. He's super busy. He
Mm,
loves doing lots of different things. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, can you stop taking on more stuff? You're doing too much. But actually, we do try and do things for the team. And if he is taking something on, he does generally run it past me.
that's really good. And just I think that meeting, that logistics Monday morning meeting is
Yeah,
such a good idea. I think
exactly.
I need to add that in my life as well,
And we're
actually.
lucky that we both can work flexibly, so we can take that time out of our diary and, dog walk, cafe,
Oh, sounds
coffee, and a planning meeting.
that's such a good idea. Do you schedule it? Is it like in the
Yeah,
diary every
yeah,
week?
absolutely.
That's an amazing
And if
tip.
it doesn't happen, we notice that by Thursday we're probably arguing, we've probably missed something. It really does make a difference. So we really do try and make sure that that is,
It's
a
there.
priority in our week. Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. Well, you've already given us an amazing piece of advice there, but I always ask my guests, from your experience, what
Yeah.
three things would you suggest to our listeners to help them prioritize themselves, become happier, work smarter, or just thrive in general? What three things, or however many things you've got, can you suggest that will help them out here?
So, one thing that I do is bullet journaling. So, I mean, I'm not the best bullet journaler, but this is my. Oh, look, it matches my top.
Oh, it's
But
beautiful. I love that
my
color.
bullet journal, and I use that for. I use it as a planner. So I use it as a planner for my work. I use it as a kind of a diary and scheduler for things that are coming up. But it's also bullet journal is kind of about not just about kind of making lists of like to-do lists. It's also about setting goals. It's about reflecting on your day. I don't do a huge amount of kind of writing it like a diary, partly because I just think if I lost it, that would just be horrendous.
Mm.
But I do use it to kind of reflect. At the end of the day, I might have a look through and go, okay, what went well, what didn't go so well, and setting goals. A lot of bullet journaling is about setting goals and where you want to be and what you're kind of aiming for. And also, it can be quite a creative outlet as well. Some people make amazing bullet journals. I'm not that person, but I do.
Mm.
If I have a bit of time, I'll be like, I'll just do a little bit of calligraphy or do some
Oh,
little.
lovely.
I'm not an artist, but little sketches or little kind of little doodles. So it's that I find really helpful as, for someone who I prefer things written down rather than online. Obviously, I do a lot of my work is online, so I like to be able to kind of write things down manually and to have that kind of creative outlet. So that's something that I really like. So bullet journaling is my number one.
Lovely.
Um, I think another thing, and I kind of touched on it when I was just talking a minute ago, but I think thinking about what do we need, what's important for us to be well. So is it, um, I think for everyone exercise is important, but what kind of exercise is that? Walking the dog, or is it going to the gym, or is it going to a class with friends? What do we need? And actually spending rather than just kind of being like, oh, I like to do this, I like to do that, but actually spending some time thinking, what is important for me? Um, is it to meet up with a friend regularly and just have that social time, and actually being really intentional about doing those things, whatever it is, and they're different for everybody, but actually being intentional about what's important for us as individuals to do well in our life and in our work, and actually trying to make sure that we do that, even if it's maybe not as regularly as we would like, but
Mm.
actually scheduling time in and thinking, oh, I've not met up with my friends for a while, let's book something in. So I think that's my other tip, is to think, what do you need to what do you need in order to be well, and how can you schedule time in to make sure you do those things. Another thing is, I don't know, this might be the stage of life that I'm at with my kids, but I've started to try and think of me and my family. Obviously we are a unit, but also to see my kids as their own people and not just an extension of me. And I think that's partly, as the older two especially are now at secondary school. It can be so easy if one of them leaves the house in the morning in a grump. There's every chance that they will do that because one's a teenager, one's nearly. And I have found that sometimes I'll spend the day worrying, thinking, oh my goodness, are they okay? And I'm not saying don't worry about your kids, of course I'm not. But actually, they'll come back absolutely fine, had a great day, no problem at all. And I've wasted a day stressing about them
Oh,
when I didn't need to. So I'm just trying to start. Obviously, I do worry about my kids and I do want them to be well, and I will
of
do
course.
what I can to support them. But actually, to try and be like, they're not an extension of me, they are their own people, and they will, I will support them in making decisions, but sometimes they will make choices that maybe aren't the best. And I want to help them through that, but also that doesn't necessarily reflect on me. They are their own people. And obviously the 6 year old is still
Still
little,
in
but
that needy, yeah.
yeah. But trying to have that thing of I am my own person, and they are developing as their own people, but it's not so all tied in together. Um, so that every little thing that affects them doesn't need to have a huge impact on me. Obviously, it will affect me because I want them to be fine. I don't want them to be upset or hurt or whatever it is. But
Mm.
just trying to kind of have a little bit of separation and saying mentally, I don't mean physical separation, but mentally kind of saying, that is them, and I will do my best to help them and to support them. But actually, I don't need to be in that same place as them. I'm
Mm.
the parent. I am in my own space, and I want to empathize and support them, but I don't need to dive into the depths, especially as they're becoming teenagers. I don't need to dive into the depths of their emotions um to be supporting them. I need to look at it from my perspective as their parent, as an adult. Um and so, because I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in how your kids are doing, and actually, it can be really hard to see yourself in that, because everything can be about the kids. And when there's four of them, that's a lot of time and energy. So just
Mm.
trying to see myself as my own person and the kids as their own individual people
I
is,
don't
I don't know if it's a tip for other people or if it's just something that's helpful
No,
for
I
me.
mean my children are still small, like 5 and 7, so I'm not
Uh-huh.
there yet. But I can imagine when you get to that point and they are teenagers and they are starting
Mhm,
to be that much more independent and kind of
mhm.
you have to start your relationship with them changes, right? And so
Yeah,
I guess you have to be able to empower them to
yeah.
become themselves
Mhm.
confidently, as well as you start to think, actually, things are changing, and I do need to give them a bit more space and support them
Yeah.
in a different way to how they were when they were small. I love
Mhm.
those ideas. So we've got bullet journaling, thinking about what we need, maybe sometimes at the time, as well as kind of like scheduling in what those things that you need as well. And then finally, to start seeing your children as their own people and not just an extension of yourself, to give them the space to thrive as well, I guess, really. Thank
Yeah,
you, Helen.
yeah,
They are
absolutely.
amazing. So finally, where can the listeners find you? Where's the best place for them to kind of get in contact?
Well, I hang out on Instagram quite a lot, probably maybe more than I should, but you can definitely find me on Instagram and do, if you want to give me a follow, say hi. Um, I have a website which I'll send you the details, so hopefully
Yeah.
that can go in the notes. Um, but yeah, I also started a podcast a little while ago, and that kind of came from me loving kind of digging into what people do and finding out more about that. And that's where I had the idea for it. And so that's the Cultivating Creative podcast. If you want to have a listen to that, just hearing about people's businesses. Not it's not only mums and it's not only women, but it mainly is. Most of my clients have been, and it's kind of digging into what they do and how they get their inspiration, where their creativity comes from. So yeah, if you want to have a listen to that, that would be fantastic.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today, Helen. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been great to chat.